Okay, so people think about clothing a lot. We wake up every morning and we put on clothes for the day, so we make unconscious and conscious decisions about what we're going to wear and how it's going to affect who we're seeing, like trying to make the best impressions. So my research experiment was on how clothing color and age affect how positively and negatively people judge others. Okay, so fashion is a huge part of everyday life, like I said. Not only here in the United States, but also all over the world. People spend ridiculous amounts of money on the latest clothing line and fashion trends to make sure they look their best for others. Men and women of all ages, there's not just one specific, it's like across the line. They spend like time in the morning getting ready for their day, making sure they look their best for whoever they're going to see, like their peers and their coworkers and people at school. So first impressions can mean a lot to most people, or some people, if they want to put their best foot forward when they're initially meeting someone. So how a person dresses can affect impressions whether we notice or not. So a study was done by Guin and Jacob that found that waitresses were tipped higher when they were wearing red clothing. So like if their uniform was a red shirt, they were tipped higher by only men, which suggests that red is an attractive color to men for women. And another study found that men are perceived as more aggressive than women when both genders are wearing black clothing. So like black is an aggressive color to outsiders or anyone. And a third study found that offenders and suspects made more of an aggressive impression when they wore black clothing than when they wore light colored clothing. So again, black can be seen as like a it's darker, but like actually darker color clothing. So my hypothesis was that participants will judge men and women in the pictures more positively when they're wearing lighter colors than when they're wearing darker colors. So for my methods, I obviously used SurveyMonkey, and I had 28 participants total. I had to delete like 10 or 12 of the people who took my survey because they didn't answer like quality control questions or they took too short of a time. So I had 7 males and 28 females. I've been showing pictures throughout the sides of the pictures I used in my survey, but I used men and women, so younger or older, and in 4 different colors, so black, blue, white, and yellow. And I picked the black and the blue to symbolize the darker colors and the white and the yellow to symbolize the lighter colors. So here's the questions I asked to each of the participants. I asked, how likely would you be to ask this person for directions if needed? How likely would you be to offer your assistance to this person? And how likely would you be to approach this person for any reason? And they had to answer all 3 of these questions after each picture they looked at. The questions were asked on a Likert type scale, from 1 to 5, 1 being unlikely and 5 being very likely. So these are my results. I didn't find much, but that's okay. I found that for the between subjects, there was a main effect of the likelihood to offer assistance, which means that the older stimuli, the participants were more likely to offer assistance to the older stimuli. And I found an interaction of age, clothing color, and approachability. So that means that the participants were more likely to approach the older stimuli wearing the lighter colored clothing. So I guess my original hypothesis was sort of supportive, but not as significantly as I originally planned it was going to be. And then this graph shows the likelihood I found for participants to ask for directions. The bars on the left are the younger stimuli, and the bars on the right are the older stimuli, and then the lighter purple is for the lighter color clothing, and the darker purple is for the darker color clothing. So as you can see, there was a little difference, but nothing significant. Like this goes up from 3.08 to 3.1, so it's not as significant as it looks because of the way it's measured here, at least for this variable. Okay, so So this is just a table for my means and standard deviation of the likelihood to ask for directions. As you can see, the means didn't really differ much between the dark and light and the two conditions. It only went up about 0.1 consistently throughout this variable. So some limitations of my study. All my participants that took the study were 22 years or younger, so they weren't nearly as old as, say, the man in this picture right here for like the older stimuli. They weren't nearly as old as that, so that was a confound. So going along with that, when you see an old person on the side of the road, most people aren't gonna just keep on driving by and not help that poor innocent man or woman that you see. They're not gonna just walk away. You normally stop and help them, unless it's like this old man because he's actually kind of creepy and I wouldn't help him. But so another limitation is that maybe the men taking the survey were more inclined to help the women because that's who they're attracted to. So like men helping women and women helping men, so like vice versa. And lastly, I had an uneven number of stimuli, and that was my fault. But that definitely affected my internal validity, so I should have had an even amount of both younger pictures and older pictures. I think I had 4 different younger pictures and only 3 older pictures. Okay, so for future directions, other researchers could add more variety to the picture. So I only had, I think, 1 African American man in my picture and 1 Asian. So if this was to be replicated, they could add variety to that, or even just like keep all of the stimuli one specific race or 1 specific gender. They could also put the stimuli, I was thinking about this after, they could put the stimuli into different scenarios. So like, for example, so-and-so was stranded on the side of the road. He's a 60-year-old male wearing a white t-shirt, and then give the participants like no pictures, just the scenario to go off of, and like see how, if the clothing would affect, like the color of the shirt would affect the participants' judgments. Future researchers could ask different questions. So like I asked, approachability, likelihood to offer directions. But they could have asked, like, do you think this person has a criminal background, or like what type of job do you think they have had in the past or have now, so something like that. And also just like pull from a greater pool of participants, like if more older people participated in the study, would like them being older have affected how likely they would have been to offer assistance to another older person. So does participant age matter in whether people would help more or not? Because I found that only college students took my survey, obviously, but I found that college students were more inclined to help older people than people their own age, which I found shocking. So now I have questions. So Jordan asked, did you ask people to rate your pictures for attractiveness before you put them on your survey? And that would be no. So I forgot to ask people to rate them. So they were all like average, because one of the old lady was super cute, and I think that was a confound. And like in this old man is super creepy, so that's also a confound. So if I would have asked people to rate the pictures, they would have been more average and would have given more accurate results. Okay, Steve asked, do you think if you had more male participants, it would have affected the results? Not necessarily. I don't know. There was an even number of female to male. Well, I guess uneven but in each condition there was an even number of male and female stimuli, so I don't think that would have really affected necessarily the results. Maybe if more males took it that were older, it would have affected the results. Like older males could be more inclined to help because they feel like a need to be macho. I don't know, maybe. And then Shelby said, in the future, do you think if you change the dependent variable to race or a specific gender, like how would your results differ? So I guess she's asking like I said, for my limit, or what did I say that for? Future research, if we just add more variety to the stimuli, so like if I added all African American pictures, I think honestly, yeah, it would have affected the results because, you know, like racism, even if you're not consciously thinking about it, it still is a thing. So like maybe if, yeah, I think it would have affected the results if I maybe like had all of the participants in one race, or even if I did all the stimuli in just men or women. I think that the results would have been much different. Okay,